Don't worry, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
What? Can the police actually draw your blood? Let's walk through the process of the police drawing your blood, from the driver's seat all the way to the hospital. And we'll talk about what's legal, what's not, and how you can refuse. So will the cops draw your blood on the side of the road after you've been pulled over? Most likely not. I've never seen it happen actually on the side of the road, and I've never even heard of it happening on the side of the road. Even if the police were properly trained on venipuncture and how to handle needles, I can't imagine the side of the road would be a really good place to draw blood. I think it's safe to say that you won't need to refuse a blood draw on the side of the road. But when do the cops decide to draw blood? The main reason the police would likely want your blood is if you're suspected of driving under the influence. The police will arrest you and take you down to the station or to the hospital. These days, with marijuana seemingly everywhere, even more people might be subjected to a demand to roll up your sleeve. The police can then try to get your blood for a DUI via implied consent or a blood search warrant. Implied consent is fancy lawyer talk that means the government has deemed you to already have consented to having your blood or breath taken for a DUI situation by virtue of driving on the public roadway. Implied consent is the government consenting for you. Whether the police use implied consent or a search warrant to try to get a blood sample for you is going to depend upon the circumstances of your arrest, and definitely it will depend upon your state's laws. The same state laws that require you to blow into a breathalyzer over at the police station, which is a big thing like this, most likely also require you to submit to a blood draw like this. But what's the big deal? It's just blood and my body's gonna make more, right? My concern is that your blood is part of you. If you're going to throw up your hands and not care about the government actually taking away part of your body, I've got a 12-pack of Bud Light I can sell you. But more practically, there are actually medical risks when somebody sticks a needle in your vein and takes your blood away. The FDA even tracks fatalities that are likely caused by blood donation every single year. Even babies and infants can die sometimes simply by having their blood drawn. It's truly shocking. So can you refuse a blood draw after you've been arrested? In Virginia, if you refuse to allow your blood to be drawn after you've been lawfully arrested for DWI, you're committing the civil offense of refusal. A civil refusal is not a crime, but the punishment does require a 1-year forfeiture of your driver's license. In ye olden days, you actually could be convicted of the crime of refusal for not allowing the police to take your blood via implied consent. But in Birchfield v. North Dakota in 2016, the Supreme Court put the kibosh on that, ruling that states may not criminalize refusing a warrantless blood draw. So, under implied consent, refusing does carry some penalties, but it should not be a crime. But can't the police just go get a search warrant for your blood? Yes, they can. In one jurisdiction in Virginia where I practice frequently, it is standard procedure if you refuse the breath test for the police to go get a search warrant for your blood and take you directly to the hospital to roll up your sleeve. Gone are the days of having to wake up a judge in the middle of the night to get him to sign off on a search warrant. These days, with technology, it's so much easier to get a search warrant any time of the day or night that the police want. The police get legal paperwork that entitles them to demand your blood. So if you're arrested and there's a search warrant for the police to get your blood, can you still refuse? Yes and no. The police are not likely to hold you down and try to take your blood against your will. California Highway Patrol did exactly that in 2020, and the defendant died. Now, the victim's family has received a payout of $24 million from the state. Plus, the nurse and all the officers involved are charged with involuntary manslaughter. But if you don't comply with a search warrant, you likely will be charged with some type of additional offense. In Virginia, my clients routinely get charged with obstruction of justice if they refuse to allow a blood draw even in the face of a police search warrant. It's a crime. But what if the hospital wants you to sign a civil waiver that says you won't sue them? Can you refuse that? This is where things get really tricky, at least in Virginia. Our state has a law that says, no person arrested for DUI shall be required to execute in favor of any person or corporation a waiver or release of liability in connection with the withdrawal of blood. But some hospitals still trot out a waiver form anytime the police bring someone in to have blood drawn. But if the hospital won't draw your blood without a waiver, and you refuse to sign the waiver, does that mean that you're guilty of obstruction of justice? I argue no, and some judges have agreed with me in several cases thus far. But keep in mind that that's specific to Virginia's laws, and your state's laws are likely going to vary a lot. Due to the way our statutes work, you're not required to execute a waiver, and if the hospital won't do their job without you executing a waiver, it really shouldn't be you who is considered to be obstructing justice. So what should you do if the police come asking for your blood? You probably need to comply if you're under a lawful arrest for DUI. If the hospital or nurse presents you with a waiver to sign first, I personally don't know that I would sign one, but I certainly can't advise you not to, because then you could be exposing yourself to possible additional criminal charges. It's a very sticky situation that I don't think has a clear answer in the law. If you think the police drawing your blood is crazy, wait till you see how Alaska is collecting DNA on innocent citizens. I'll see you over there. And remember, don't talk to the police.